That's your unit 1 of statistical mechanics. Uh, I'm not going to read these topics because what we are going to achieve in statistical mechanics is thermodynamics is a subject which is 1 minute. I'm going to just interrupt. ओंकार जी, आप सुन रहे हैं मेरी बात?
Yes, sir. It's audible. No problem.
आप recording करेंगे क्या?
Yes, sir. It's started. Already started.
Yeah, please record it. Okay.
Yes, sir. I will record it and I am marking attendance also. No problem.
Yeah, please do the recording, video recording.
Yes, sir. Sure.
So
Yes.
the what we do in statistical mechanics is basically we are trying to arrive at the same results which we know thermodynamically. So in thermodynamics, all the results we have, all the equations we have are arrived at empirically by studying the system. But the microscopic origin is in a way not known. Part of the statistical process you have already learned in 12th standard when you did kinetic theory of gases. That was nothing but a statistical process where you considered gas molecules moving randomly and you arrived at the gas equation. Uh, and we will see that what are the issues with empirical thermodynamics, and then we would try to understand in terms of statistical behavior of gas molecules or particles of the substance. So we go to the microscopic behavior, find its property at behavior at study microscopic behavior, and then try to average out statistically so that we are able to predict macroscopic parameters of the state. These are the textbooks. One is Greiner, Patria, and Huang, Statistical Physics. Now, the first thing, I'm just going to review some of the thermodynamics which you have already studied so far. So, if you have length and temperature, volume of an object, then with temperature it changes as what you see on the screen. That's called linear dependence. Okay. For alpha also you can write a similar expression as what I've written for gamma in a differential form. So that gamma is the coefficient of cubical expansion, alpha is coefficient of linear expansion. L0, V0 are the original temperature, lengths and volumes. And if you increase the temperature by delta T, the new length and volume you will see by this equation. This is an exercise which I am going to send you, but I will just talk about the exercise. You are given a rail track. Okay, track has a length L, and because of the expansion, it's going to bend, deform. Of course, here you are assuming that you are not allowing it to expand beyond its limit of L. Uh, I'm sure all of you are aware that when you have railway tracks, we do leave some gaps between two tracks to take care of this expansion part. But if there is that provision doesn't exist, what will happen? The track will expand and it will bend at the center. And based on the expansion property, which you have seen, the equation in front of you, you are to predict what will be this displacement x from its original position. Can you see this? 1 minute.
Yes, sir.
Let me just choose the pointer. This x value here. So you want to know how much it actually goes away from its original position. The second one is a similar one. You can do that with the length also. If I want a scale whose length does not change with temperature, then I will take two different lengths of two different material, keep them side by side, so that both will expand such that the difference in the length will always remain same. And that difference is what you want to maintain, and you have to therefore decide based on the expansion properties of those two materials what should be the original length that you should choose. Just 1 minute. So on the same line, there is a second exercise which says we want a vessel whose volume does not change with temperature. Okay, that hint with the problem. That problem is not given here. Uh, uh, so that is a wrong printing. We should ignore that bracket. We can use brass and iron, and you want to create a volume of 100 cc. How would you achieve this? It's an interesting exercise. Whatever I'm suggesting, please go through it because that will all help you in developing your understanding of thermodynamic properties and then understand the equations as we go move along. The next is amongst the thermal property we have is the thermal conductivity, the rate of conduction between the two surfaces. In this case, you can see the two surfaces having area A separated by distance d. K is the conductivity of the medium between the two surfaces. Two surfaces are maintained at temperature T1 and T2, and the rate of flow of heat. So A is the area of cross section of the two surfaces. D is the distance between two surfaces, two temperatures, and the conductivity. Just sorry, there is a small disturbance. Okay, based on this conductivity business, here is an exercise. You know, in refrigerator, we put ice cubes. The freezer section for ice cube is maintained at minus 10 degrees Celsius. And your ice tray is made of non-conducting material, you assume. Okay, maybe wooden or maybe plastic, you can assume it doesn't conduct. So the only place where exchange of heat takes place is from the top of the water surface. Okay, so you have those cubical compartments in which you have filled water, and it is going to lose heat energy to the freezer section and slowly freeze. Okay, so assume that the tray water is already at 0 degrees Celsius, and now it is going to freeze. Okay, so how much time it's going to take? The reason I'm saying assume that it is already at 0 degree is because the specific heat is very small compared to latent heat, and therefore majority of the process is in losing the energy involved in freezing. So you want to calculate time required for freezing. You are given this. I'm going to send this problem sheet, so you should work it out. Then the next you have studied is Stefan's law of radiation, where the energy radiated from a surface is given by uh, E sigma A T raised to 4. Sigma is the Stefan's constant. You can see the value. The number is very interesting. You can remember it forever. It is 5, 6, 7, and 8. 5.67 into 10 raised to minus 8. A is the surface area, T is the absolute temperature of the surface, and E is the emissivity of the surface. Now there is a nice exercise. You can think of a nuclear weapon as a fireball of radius 0.5 meter. And when it is detonated, it temperature of 10 raised to 6 Kelvin, and will act like a black body. And we want to understand what would be the destructive effect of it. So that is what you are expected to calculate. Next is latent heat. We already talked about this problem when water would lose energy to freeze to ice, or ice can melt at 0 degree by gaining 80 calories per gram, which in MKS unit turns out to be 36 kilojoules per kilogram per Kelvin. Okay, so here are the two simple exercises. Then there's a specific heat. You already know about it. Mass times specific heat times change in temperature. So every degree rise for unit mass, you require some energy. Okay, and therefore, if I have mass m and change in temperature is delta T, the heat required is ms delta T, as you can see here, this equation. It's a school level equation. You may have forgotten. In that case, I am simply reminding you. So there are two more problems which you will see in the sheet which I will give you. Then, of course, the behavior of gases. That's most of the time we deal with when we talk about thermodynamics. And you have an ideal gas equation. Now, what is meaning of ideal conditions? The ideal condition is the limiting case when pressure is small and temperature is large. Okay? But what is meaning of small and large? That's relative term, and that is subject to some other issues. We'll talk about it. So you have an ideal gas equation. All of you know the meaning of this. P is pressure, V is volume, T is the absolute temperature, R is your universal gas constant, and N is number of moles of gas. I'm sure all of you know number of moles. Is there anyone who doesn't know what number of moles mean? Yes?
No, sir.
Who will tell me? Is there anyone who doesn't know what does number of moles mean?
No, sir.
Yes?
No, sir.
Salunke?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Shubham, Salunke, what is number of moles?
The amount of substance present in a specific volume.
Oh, what volume is that?
Avogadro's constant.
Okay, let me go this way. If I want 1 mole of water, what should I do?
We divide 1 gram of water, atomic weight of water by Avogadro number.
What is Avogadro's number? Number of molecules in 1 gram. So you are going to
Yes, sir.
count number of molecules of water.
सर मैं
हाँ?
ऑक्सीजन का 16 और हाइड्रोजन की 2 और क्या बोलते हैं इसको?
धवल बोल रहा है?
हाँ सर
हाँ, good. Say it. Go ahead. You are on the right track.
सर 16 का, हाँ, ऑक्सीजन का जो मॉलिक्यूलर मास है
16
वो
और
16 है,
तो है
और
तो दो।
हाइड्रोजन 2, एक मतलब 2 ले रहे हैं, H ले रहे हैं, इसके लिए 2, इसके लिए 18
So
होगा सर,
two for hydrogen. So total molecular weight is 18.
18. 1 mole is equal to
1 mole is equal to?
सर वही
धवल
होगा,
भाई
18 जो होगा वो अपना 1 मोल होगा,
क्या होगा? फिर से बताओ.
वो 18 जो मॉलिक्यूलर मास है वही अपना 1 मोल होगा.
हाँ, so 18 molecular mass क्या होगा? Pound? 18 pound?
नहीं यार, वही 1 मोल होगा.
18
नहीं, but
grams.
18 क्या?
Sir, 18 grams.
18 क्या लूं?
Grams.
हाँ?
18 gram.
18 grams,
sir, grams,
correct. 18 grams of water would be 1 mole, which means if you take 18 gram of water, it will have 6 into 10 raised to 23 water molecules. That's what 1 mole means. Okay. Then, of course, in case of gases, you have to define 2 different types of specific heats. One is called specificated constant pressure, and the other is specificated constant volume. And you know why? Because you can heat a gas, its volume also changes and pressure also changes. So if you allow it only volume to change by holding pressure constant, then it requires certain energy for rise in temperature, some rise in temperature. But if you maintain its volume constant, then its pressure is going to build up. So that will be a different amount of heat energy required. So there are 2 situations. Either you can maintain volume constant or you maintain pressure constant. And then you have those 2 different specific heats, and they are related by this relation Cp minus Cv equal to R. As you know, R is your universal gas constant. Cp by Cv is a ratio we call gamma, but that gamma we will have to see what it is. This gamma is 5 by 3 for monatomic gas, 7 by 5 for diatomic gas, and 4 by 3 for polyatomic gas. Okay. In principle. In practice, there may be small variations, but unless it is specifically told you, by knowing the nature of the gas, these are the gamma values you would choose. These are the gamma values that you should be choosing. Then, of course, you have different processes when gas undergoes some transformation, some changes. So, if your temperature remains constant, you call it isothermal process. As you can see the equation, if you do not allow number of particles to change and temperature to change, then pressure into volume remains constant. The next is an adiabatic process. This is a process in which there is no exchange of heat energy with the surrounding, between gas and the surrounding. So in that case, the relation is PV raised to gamma equal to constant. We already talked about what gamma is. And if you have a polytropic process, which means it's a mixture of isothermal and adiabatic process, then you have some relation which is PV raised to N. That N is the polytropic index, and that somebody will have to tell you, or you have to find out what kind of process is it by looking at the value of N. So you have an exercise here based on the ideal gas equation, and as I told you, you will be receiving it. So in first case, you see you have a vessel in which you have 6 gram of gas at 7 degrees Celsius and some pressure, and you are heated to 147 degrees Celsius, and some gas escapes. The pressure is maintained constant. Then you have to determine how much of the gas would have escaped. An interesting exercise. And then second is that you have an air bubble which starts rising from bottom of the lake, which is 2.5 meter deep. And then this bubble diameter increases from 3.6 millimeter to 4 millimeter at the surface. Obviously, you know what happens. As you go down the surface of water, pressure keeps on increasing. So as it bubble rises from the bottom, it's encountering smaller and smaller pressure, and therefore its volume keeps on increasing. Okay, but here it's not just the volume which is increasing. Even temperature is changing. So if temperature is at the surface is 40 degree Celsius, you want to know what is the temperature at the bottom of the lake. So it's a nice exercise, which I think all of you should go. Then you have what you call as first law of thermodynamics, which says dq is du plus pdv, where dq is the heat supplied to the system. Because of this heat supplied, its internal energy changes. If you supply heat, of course, internal energy should increase. Plus, some of the energy you supplied will be used if the gas expands in doing work against external pressure. So that also gets added. And if you have a thermodynamic system which is going through a cycle, okay, so you start with some pressure volume, then you make it go through some kind of processes. Typically, you are all familiar with Carnot cycle. So you have an isothermal and adiabatic process. So isothermal, adiabatic, then again isothermal, backward, and then adiabatic. So it forms a cycle. The efficiency of such a cycle should be considered as work done divided by heat supplied. And so for this, I'm giving you another problem in which you are given a heat engine which goes through a particular cycle. You have to read the description, and you are expected to evaluate pressure and temperature at different points, as well as efficiency of this cycle. I must tell you that I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to ask you your answers after you have done this problem next time when we meet. So we are not going to just assume that you have done it. You have done it and proceed further. I will make sure that you have done it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now we are trying to understand ideal gas equation using the idea that a gas consists of large number of identical point-sized molecules in random motion. Okay. So PV equal to nRT is an equation that we got empirically. Okay, people did some experiments and then arrived at some relation. You may have done this experiment of Boyle's law in your 11th standard or 12th standard laboratory, where you just took a YouTube manometer and then you moved it up and down, changed the pressure, and saw how the volume of the air trapped changes. So you know the equation PV equal to nRT, but we don't know where it came from. We only know experimentally that it follows this rule. But in physics, we would like to understand the origin, what gives rise to this kind of relation between physical parameters or quantities. So the first idea, first assumption we make is that you gas consists of large number of identical point size molecules. Point size means the molecules themselves do not occupy any volume. Okay, and they are in random motion. So that's my first assumption. Second is that these molecules collide with each other and walls of the container perfectly elastically with no force of interaction amongst them. That means these gas molecules are electrically neutral. They don't exert any kind of force on each other. And because of the random motion, they collide with each other. They also collide with the container walls. And these collisions are perfectly elastic. So that's the second assumption. So first assumption is on the nature of molecules. Second is on the nature of interaction. The third one is what gives rise to pressure of the gas. The pressure of the gas is a result of momentum imparted by molecules during collision. So you know Newton's second law. It says that rate of change of momentum is the force. Okay, so as the gas molecules hit the wall and rebound, they would definitely impart a momentum. Okay, let me say very a simple idea. Suppose if I throw a ball with momentum P onto the wall, it will hit the wall and bounce back. Assume that the collision is elastic. It will hit and bounce back with the same magnitude of momentum P. But if you incorporate direction, when it hits the wall, suppose its momentum is P, and when it rebounds, it has changed the direction, so that momentum becomes minus P. Therefore, change in momentum is minus 2P. And this minus 2P in a given time would mean that there is a force. So rate of imparting this momentum. So you have large number of gas molecule, almost as many as Avogadro's number. They are continuously randomly colliding with each other, bouncing back. Okay, maybe not necessarily perpendicular, but at some angle, and therefore on an average they would be continuously imparting some force. So that force continuously exists on the wall. That is what we measure as pressure. Force per unit area is what we measure as pressure. Then you have kinetic energy of these molecules, which is what we relate to temperature, because you know temperature is energy, right? We saw specific heat, we saw latent heat. So as you heat up the substance, its temperature rises, and therefore you supply energy, its temperature rises. So temperature is a measure of energy. And the random motion, these gas molecules have some kinetic energy. So this kinetic energy is related to temperature of the gas, or temperature in a way is a measure of these kinetic energy. So these are our four assumptions. One is on nature of molecules, second is nature of interaction, third is on what gives rise to pressure, and fourth is what gives rise to temperature. Volume is of course obvious, that's the containing one. Now based on these assumptions, I'm sure this you have done in 12th standard level, you arrive at an expression for pressure as PV equal to 1/3 nmc square. N is number of gas molecules, m is mass of each of the gas molecule, and c is the RMS speed, root mean square speed. Now since your half mc square is the kinetic energy of one gas molecule, if I take half nmc square, it is sum of kinetic energy of all the gas molecules. So your half mc square is 3/2 kT, and therefore if you substitute this back into the equation, experimentally we know that half mc square is 3/2 kT. You may have come across equipartition of energy and so on. and that will give you your relation PV equal to NKT. N if it is Avogadro's number, then Nk is your universal gas constant. So if N is Avogadro's number, it is 1 mole of gas, then N times K becomes universal gas constant. So you want to see nature of variation of P versus V graph. So what I am going to do is I am going to give you a few minutes and fill up this table. So I have a gas whose volume is 0.1, 0.25, 0.5. This is an arbitrarily chosen scale, which means whatever the volume, I've scaled them down to such simple numbers. And then I have got this pressure, which is, pressure is actually nRT divided by V. So for nRT, I am taking 0.5, 1, and 2. So I'll have 3 columns. Okay, so are you all sitting with calculator? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
हाँ,
Yes, sir.
सबके पास कैलकुलेटर, वैसे तो ये नंबर्स के लिए कैलकुलेटर की जरूरत नहीं है. So I would assume that you can do this calculation, immediately fill up the table. I give you 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, all of you should have this table completed. Yes, done?
No, sir.
It takes too long. See, you fill up the middle column first because it's 1 upon V, and that will be the quickest. So if V is 0.1, 1 by V is 10, 0.25, 1 by V is 4, 0.5, 1 by V is 2. For V equal to 1, P is 1, P equal to 2, P will be 0.5, 5 it will be 0.2, and 10 will be 0.1. So once you have 1 by V, on left it is 0.5 times, and right it is 2 times. So if you fill the middle column, the first and second column can be filled very quickly. Haji, MSc part 2. For such simple numbers also you are taking so long.
Yes, sir.
Right. किसका हो गया?
Done, sir.
Haji? Yeah, you have to tell me your name because I can't see your names written because I'm seeing only what I'm showing you.
Roshan.
Yes, Roshan. हो गया पूरा table.
Yes.
Just take a simple a scale on P versus V graph and quickly plot them for each column.
Yes, sir.
Yes, for each column, quickly plot this graph. Okay, I think I'm going to change my slide and we will see. That's what the table looks like. As I said, if you plot 1 upon V, if you calculate 1 by V, then the first column will be half of it and the second column, third column will be twice. And if I plot this, that's what it looks like. So these are my P versus V isotherms schematically for different value of temperature. You know, if you take PV equal to nRT, as you change temperature, the right hand side changes. So PV equal to constant, but if constants are different, then you get different curves. So that's what the P versus V graph looks like. Does anybody know what is the shape of this graph called? What are these curves called? Whom should I ask? Priyanka. हाँ धवल भाई किधर बैठा है व्यारा में?
हाँ सर, नहीं इधर ही हूँ, घर पे ही हूँ।
मुंबई में हो
मुंबई में हूँ सर।
या वलसाड़ में हो?
नहीं सर, वलसाड़ में लिया नहीं हम लोग को,
अच्छा निकाल दिया, बोला जाओ वापस।
निकाल दिया सर।
ओके
Sir, it is TS diagram.
हाँ हाँ, सो ये ग्राफ को क्या बोलते हैं?
TS
ये कर्व्स
diagram.
को, हाँ जी,
TS diagram.
दिस इज नॉट टीएस, दिस इज पी वर्सेस वी डायग्राम। अरे क्या टीएस डायग्राम, प्रेशर वर्सेस वॉल्यूम प्लॉट कर रहे हैं तो टीएस कैसे हो गया? ये पीवी डायग्राम है। नहीं नहीं, वो तो पीवी है, लेकिन मैथमेटिक्स में ये कर्व्स को क्या बोलते हैं, किसी को पता है?
Sir, under
Inversely proportional.
नहीं नहीं, इफ आई प्लॉट एक्स वाई इक्वल टू कांस्टेंट,
Exponential is decreasing.
अरे आपको कर्व्स का नाम पता है ना, सर्कल होता है, पैराबोला होता है, एलिप्स होता है, वैसा। तो अगर ये इस टाइप का कर्व्स जिसमें एक्स एंड वाई प्लॉट किया है, एक्स वर्सेस वाई, एंड एक्स वाई इज इक्वल टू कांस्टेंट, प्रोडक्ट ऑफ एक्स एंड वाई इज कांस्टेंट, व्हाट इज इट कॉल्ड?
exponential.
ना, एक्स वाई इक्वल टू कांस्टेंट इज नॉट एक्सपोनेंशियल,
Exponentially decreasing.
y equal to a raised to x is called exponential.
Hyperbola.
Inversely
कौन बोल रहा
proportional.
है ये?
Inverse proportional.
नहीं,
Inversely
who says hyperbola? Who says hyperbola?
Shubham
हाइपरबोला
Nilkant.
किसने बताया?
Nilkant.
Shubham Nilkant.
अच्छा नीलकंठ जी, शुभम। हाँ शुभम, as I understand the equation of hyperbola, it is x square by a square minus y square by b square equal to 1. ऐसा तो इक्वेशन नहीं लग रहा है, तो why are you saying hyperbola? Do you have a reason to call it hyperbola?
Just a hunch, sir.
हाँ जी,
किया सर, गेस किया।
गैस किया, चलो हमारा गैस तो सही निकला, लेकिन मैं कारण बता देता हूँ। हाइपरबोला को जो इंफिनिटी पे टेंजेंट्स होते हैं उसको एसिम्पटोट्स बोलते हैं, and if these two asymptotes of hyperbola are perpendicular, then hyperbola is called rectangular hyperbola. वो rectangular hyperbola को स्टैंडर्ड फॉर्म में जो होता है उसको 45 डिग्री रोटेट कर दो आपको ये हाइपरबोला ऐसे दिखेंगे।
So
If you
एकदम
plot
वाइड है पर
the
ये
axis at
hyperbola।
45 degree, if you plot your axis at 45 degree to x and y axis, then you will see that they are like your normal hyperbola. हाँ, क्या पूछ रहे थे धवल भाई?
सर वो बहुत एक्सटेंड हो रहा है ना, इसके लिए हाइपरबोला समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, कर्व देख के।
नहीं अब
Shift
मैं
हो रहा
बता
है
रहा
ना
हूँ ना, जस्ट इमेजिन इसको 45 डिग्री रोटेट करो, कैसे दिखेंगे?
हाँ सर।
हाँ, और नेगेटिव में भी एक्चुअली हमने पॉजिटिव वैल्यूज ली ना, अगर आप थर्ड क्वाड्रेंट में जाते तो भी यही कर्व्स आपको रिफ्लेक्ट होकर दिखेंगे ना,
हाँ
दे
उल्टा
विल
हो जाता
एक्चुअली
है।
बी हाइपरबोला व्हेन यू रोटेट। समझा अभी?
यस सर।
Yes, very good. Okay, let's go to the next one. So I'm going to send couple of problems on kinetic theory also. So the first one says, suppose you have a closed vessel containing liquid water, an equilibrium with its vapor phase at 100 degrees Celsius. Matlab water is also at 100 degrees Celsius, vapor is also at 100 degrees Celsius, pressure maintained at 1 atmosphere. 1 gram of water vapor at this temperature and pressure occupies 1670 centimeter cube. Heat of vaporization is also given. Then by using your simple kinetic theory, मैं ये चाहूंगा आप गुरुवार को हमारा 10 बजे सेशन है उसके पहले ये रिवाइज करें और कैलकुलेट करें how many molecules are there per centimeter cube of vapor. Okay, vapor phase में in 1 centimeter cube of volume, how many molecules are there? So you are actually finding molecular density. Then how many vapor molecules will strike each centimeter square of liquid surface every second? And if each molecule striking the surface condenses on the surface, condenses means it gets stuck, becomes part of the water surface. Water and vapor are in equilibrium. Then how many will evaporate from every centimeter square every second? And compare mean kinetic energy of these vapor molecules with the energy required to transfer one molecule from liquid to vapor phase. So if you know water has latent heat of 540 calories per gram, you can multiply by 4.2, you'll get it in joules. So that many energy per gram, and you know how many water vapor. So what will be the energy for one molecule? You see, you know 18 grams have Avogadro's number of molecules. So how many will be there in 1 gram? Okay, and that energy you divide by number of molecules in 1 gram. So that is the energy required to transfer one molecule from liquid to the water phase. Very interesting exercise. If you do that, you will understand the whole process of these transformations taking place. Second exercise is relatively easier, but it's more mathematical. In the sense, you will have to do some jugglery with your equation, and you have to find kinetic energy for one molecule at, of course, 100 degrees Celsius. Kinetic energy total stored in 1 meter cube of volume. Kinetic energy for 1 kilogram, and kinetic energy for 1 kilomole of oxygen at NTP. Of course, kilogram and kilomole are much easy to correlate because like water, if you have 18 kilogram will be 1 kilomole. So if you know what is energy for 1 kilogram, then you know what is energy for 1 kilomole, and so on. So I would expect you to have solved. अभी तो मैं पूछ नहीं रहा हूँ, but otherwise I would start asking you to send me your solutions. Now let's talk about what happens in case of real gases. What we saw, PV equal to nRT kind of equation, that is true in case of an ideal gas. But if you take a real gas, okay, these are the isotherms for water. Okay, pressure versus volume. So what you see here is on the right hand side of this dotted curve here is the vapor phase. And on the left hand side, so it's a vapor phase, then you have a constant pressure. Constant pressure is maintained when there is a phase transition. So when water starts liquefying, okay, its pressure becomes constant till all the water gets liquefied. And then now you have a liquid phase, and liquids have very high compressibility. It means that for a small change in volume, I need to increase pressure tremendously. And that is why these curves are nearly vertical. So this straight line section shows the transition. But as you see, as the temperature increases, see, you look at the curve, this AB. It's at a much lower temperature. Then you increase the temperature, then you increase the temperature, and then you increase, and this is called critical isotherm. And that point where the horizontal section becomes smaller and just 1 point, that's called critical point. And above critical point, there is no liquid phase. It will exist only in gaseous phase, or people call it saturated vapor. Okay, so that's the definition of critical temperature. What it means is that if you are above critical temperature, you can't liquefy a gas by simply increasing pressure. If you increase the pressure, it remains in gaseous state. As you can see the curve, there is no liquid. That straight line section has reduced to 1 point. उसके ऊपर कोई नहीं possibility है. It remains in gaseous state. If you look at cigarette lighter, you know, you can these days you get those transparent lighters. You can see the liquid filled in it. That's the liquid below critical temperature. And therefore, under high pressure, that is also principle of liquefied petroleum gas which we use at home, the LPG cylinders which we have at home. Okay, so all the gas stored is in liquid form. And when
इसके
you
लिए वो
open,
सर
Haji,
इसके लिए वो जो ये लाइटर है तो अगर हम लोग जोर से फेंकते तो वो फटता है ना?
yes, pressure ज्यादा है, इसीलिए आपका your gas cylinder, LPG cylinder is very thick wall, very heavy metal. Okay, and when you release the valve, that liquid, because you try to reduce the pressure, that liquid comes out in gaseous form. That's what flows. Okay, so basically these are the actual isotherms you follow. So when you say ideal gas, which means you go to low pressure and high temperature. Okay, you can see this high temperature region. It's completely gaseous phase. Or you go to a very low pressure region, in this case here. There it is a gaseous state. But if the pressure is increased, your gas becomes liquid. Let's see what it has to say. So the LPG cylinders have liquefied gas that works on principle of similar isotherms. Okay, in this case it's water. There it will be isotherms of LPG. So for cooking purpose, when we open this regulator valve, it flows out in gaseous form and flows almost at constant rate till all of it is consumed. So I would like you to explain working of this LPG using these isotherms. Okay, you may assume that initially you are at the leftmost point of the horizontal section, which means all the LPG you have is in the gaseous state here. Can you see what I'm talking? See the pointer which says left of the horizontal section. So this is exactly all of it is in liquid state. Suppose I'm here and then I release the valve. Okay. Can you see? The pressure is maintained constant. So as I'm moving from right to left, what actually happening is some of it got evaporated, some of it got evaporated, some of it got evaporated, but you still have a mixture of liquid and vapor. And when you come here, all of it is gaseous. Next. Same thing, but I am asking you a question. Of course, the isotherms you have are for water, but you are going to answer the question for LPG, assuming they are almost the similar one. Okay. So as we open regulator, some gas escape could reduce pressure. Okay. Simultaneously, some liquid evaporates and rises to maintain the pressure and tries to maintain the pressure. Okay. So the state point, that pressure versus volume point on the PV diagram shifts to the right. Okay. From here onwards, once you have reached the rightmost point, okay, and if you release more gas, then your pressure starts dropping. So if you have noticed, your LPG cylinder flame is always of constant size. That means gas is flowing at constant rate till you exhaust all of it. Once all of it is exhausted, suddenly flame starts dwindling. It becomes smaller in size, becomes dimmer. That means now the amount of gas which is flowing out is small. Pressure has started dropping down. But you will never actually come to know when this will happen if you simply look at the pressure. Okay. The best way to know how much is LPG stored inside is to weigh the empty cylinder, the cylinder. So you know how much of it is consumed. Typical cylinder have around 14-15 kg of gas inside. Now we will look at some other properties of the substance. What you see here is phase diagram, pressure versus temperature. In this case, what I am showing you is that of water. So you have three curves. This is a fusion curve. Fusion curve is a line between pressure temperature relation between solid and liquid region. Then you have a vaporization curve. This is a line between liquid and the gaseous state. And you remember there was a critical point, a dot above which there was no liquid state. So that's the critical point. You go beyond this critical point, nothing. It's all gaseous state, or you call it saturated vapor. And there is a sublimation curve. Of course, in water, this sublimation occurs at a very low pressure point. But there is something known as triple point. This triple point is almost 0 degrees Celsius, but of course, the pressure is very low compared to 1 atmospheric pressure. So this triple point is where all the three states coexist. So you may have seen liquid and ice coexisting. So if you have ice cubes floating on water at 0 degrees Celsius, that is on this line. Then if you have a pressure cooker in which you have a hot water 100 degrees Celsius and the steam, that's this line. Okay, if there's nothing changing, then this is the region in which they are operating. Depending on pressure and temperature, you will be at one of these points. Of course, sublimation is something which we don't see much often. The only substance otherwise we know about sublimation at normal pressure temperature is iodine. Iodine simply evaporates. Of course, camphor also evaporates. If you just leave the camphor tablets out in open, slowly, it will evaporate and disappear. So I have already explained to you. I will just read it out. It shows the phase diagram for water. We want to understand two phenomena associated with our life using phase diagram. First is we use water inside pressure cooker for cooking food. Then I would like you to explain how this pressure cooker works and what is the advantage of using it. So you'll have to really try, understand this diagram. I'll send you some material also for studying. So you can read and try and understand the behavior and try to answer this question. Second part is, during summer in India, one of the common practice to keep ourselves cool is to make ice balls of crushed ice, dip in flavored sugar syrup and sip it, right? बर्फ का गोला सब लोग खाते हैं ना
Yes, sir.
समर में.
Yes, sir.
हाँ, सूरत वाले तो सबसे ज्यादा खाते हैं. हाँ, कहाँ गया धवल भाई?
सर बहुत फेमस है वहाँ पे तो.
हाँ, बहुत फेमस है.
गोला.
हम लोग आएंगे तुम्हारे साथ सूरत.
हाँ सर पक्का.
Okay. Now, so what they do is once they have crushed ice, they insert a stick and squeeze it, okay, between the two palms to make it into a ball. Or equivalently in winter, where it snows, people make snowballs and throw around. Okay. So using this pressure versus temperature curves, what is called as phase diagram, I would like you to explain formation of this ball out of crushed ice. That you have ice particles. You simply put pressure on them, and then it becomes a ball, and then they don't fall apart. They were all loose particles. You had crushed the ice. So they were all small ice particles, ice flakes. But now they will be held together. How does this happen? That's what you have to explain. So what I'm going to do is, I would like to stop my session today here. We'll meet on Thursday. Meanwhile, I'm going to send all these questions to you, and you are going to prepare answers, and we will discuss them on Thursday. Of course, it's not a classroom, so I won't be able to work it out on the board and show you, but you can communicate as much as possible. If you have worked out, it will be easy for me to communicate to you about what is right and what is wrong in your calculation. If you have not worked out, I will have a difficulty. So you will have to bear with me till then, because everything I can't do like we do it on board. I will try if I can find a way out. But the most important part is that all of you, now you are big boys, big girls, MSc part 2, you should be able to do those simple problems. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So can we stop?
Yes, sir.
stop here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll end this session here. Thank you very much, Omkar ji.
For more information about our activity and videos, you can visit our website, infinitelearning.org. I would also request you to subscribe our YouTube channel, Dr. Modi's Infinite Learning, if you are interested, so that you can get the information about new videos which are being posted.